All right. Testing 1, 2, 3, just seeing if I can be heard or not. All right. All right. We are live again. Day 2 of Drop Week over here at Kingslien.art, where we are focused on anatomy and sculpting inside of ZBrush, or really just digital sculpting. So you can use ZBrush, Nomad, Blender, the software which shall be remain nameless, and other software. So today we're going to sculpt the torso. We're going to get into that. So I'm going to do a couple of preemptive things right now, and then show you guys the course in case you haven't seen what it is, and then go from there. Is the mic close enough? Okay. All right. Let me know. Okay, great. Got a class attached. Awesome. All right, great. So let's first thank the people that have enrolled. Much for joining on day 1 and for being part of this journey. It's exciting to me to be back teaching this. We just started this like 3 months ago. Otherwise, I hadn't actually been teaching the digital sculpting stuff for, years, right? I helped build ZBrush 3.5, and then I was out the door just focused on teaching, and then closed that down after a couple of years to focus on game arts, to really just kind of get really tight in with careers. And I've been doing that a long time. So I'm glad to be back here focused on sculpting. And it's just been a passion of mine for a long time. So let's talk about what's in the courses when Oops. Testing there, testing here. All right. I got to keep my eye on things. Okay. I'm back. Let's go through this again. Here. All right. And let me make sure. Okay, audio on the camera. Audio here. And I've got my input. Yes, it's working. All right. Sorry, guys. So, okay. What I wanted to share with you is how the anatomy for artists is structured in the torso class. And so what I was sharing earlier when you couldn't hear me was that first there is an écorché component to most of these modules. And in this case, we're doing the different obliques. There's 3 different obliques, and we're talking about the features of those obliques. Like this is an important one right here in the back. And then we get into the external obliques, which is what most of us know of. And these have the important features of kind of inserting in little darts into the rib. The ribs also dramatically influence the shape of those at the top. So we talk about that. Then we go in and we draw them on, which is really where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. And the goal is to look at the surface and say, all right, what is that bump? What could that be? How can I, start to interpret little small changes in the surface into actual muscular structures, and what might be, let's say, a tendon, and then also not to mention how you make it a little bit graphical and beautiful. And then once you've got that done, then we go in, and let me see if I can find, I think the lower back is the best one. Yeah, lower back. So you can see here in the lower back muscles, there is a form concept, and then there's an écorché section. And the écorché is quite large because I really wanted to make sure you guys were aware of all of those muscles. Do you need to know about the multifidus, the spinalis, the longissimus? Some anatomy books don't even give you that, and they just focus on what they call the erector spinae. But I think there is a lot of value in you going just a step further, right? And this is really like I would consider this a level 1. Later on, I would love to get deeper into the multifidus and start to talk about how, its structure is, and just some more parts of it. The next part of that, you draw. So you do the écorché. That's one. Then you draw, and I think in this case I had 2 different models or 2 different poses. And then you sculpt. Okay, and when you sculpt, I'm teaching you my approach to sculpting, which really focus, and of course I'm starting you off with a base mesh, by the way. So I don't want you to start this from scratch every single time. That's what we're going to do in the figure sculpting. This is more of a complete my type situation. So I start you out with a little bit of a generic mesh that you download in the Get My Scans, and then we go through and I talk to you about how you identify, right? Like, see, this is me mapping out the form, and this is just 2D. It's like, all right, there's the medial border. We're gonna have the spine coming this way. The spine of the rib cage is largely locked, so we're making that relatively clear. The longissimus and the iliocostalis and the multifidus, they create this kind of double cord structure right there in the lower back. So, I'm starting to identify those and draw those out. And then once we've got that done, we start to work on the planar construction of them. And we're following silhouette a lot. And, this is actually a really good moment right here. Right there. This is a hard one, right? Because you're looking at this area and you're trying to say, well, what's this? What's this? What's this? Right? This is one of the big areas that all of us have trouble with. So when we learn anatomy, we learn, all right, well, this is the erector spinae group. And the erector spinae group actually consists of two muscles in this upper oval. One of those muscles is the longissimus, which is on the interior, and the other muscle is the iliocostalis, which is on the outside area. Okay? And so once you know that, you can say, oh, well, that's the iliocostalis, and I see this little half-tone break, so then that's going to be the longissimus. And then we know serratus anterior. So then you're left like, what the hell is that? And that's what I'm trying to identify right here. So I've established the bulk of the erector spinae group. I know I've got the serratus anterior and the lat there. And now there is this little dart of form that I'm trying to make sense out of. This is why we study anatomy. It's to be able to see these kind of like small little changes in the surface. And you have to remember that it is a study process, so it takes time, and you have to give yourself that time. You go in, you study, and you do these exercises, these complete me exercises. You follow what I've got right here. It's definitely going to level you up. And then if you're enrolling now, you're getting this 4-week sculpting course that I'm doing. That's actually going to be something that I continue later on because you have to put anatomy into action. And you have to look at the figure, investigate, try to make decisions, and then implement them in your sculpts, right? Which is figure sculpting. So I'm really looking forward to this 4-week class where we do the first iteration of this. And then at the end of that, you have what I would consider a great study. And it's not an academic study. For me, this is a structural study. And this is what really, I would prefer it if you guys do this as much as possible. Okay, now we also have the head. I'm going to show you that. And these are all instantly available. So, let's say the eye. The eye's got a lot. We talk about parts of the eye. And this first lesson right here is really important to me, where you go in and you learn about the orbital septum, which is this border, this boundary between the fat behind the eye and the muscles in the front. So you learn about the eye itself. You learn about what's called the tarsal plates. And the tarsal plates, you know them as eyelids, but the medical term, anatomical term, is tarsal plates. And then you also learn about the raphe. You learn about the palpebral ligament, which is the raphe, and you learn how these connect to the tarsal plates. This does a lot to help you understand the eye area. It's super important. And so with this one, what we did, and by we, I mean the royal we, I did the écorché. Then I go in and I have you guys do a digital dissection where you grab this Houdon sculpt and it's scanned, and then you're going to go in and find first off the skeletal structure, and we're going to use ZBrush's split for that. Then once you've got the skeletal structure, you can go in and start to figure out what are some of the different elements that you may be missing or not missing. And we're going to end up adding those in eventually as well. And then come in and copy scans. So you can see here, this is a scan from a bust of Homer that was done 2,500 years ago. And the level of understanding, I was talking to David Simon. So David Simon's a sculptor in LA, and he does stuff in Rome every summer. And I like to go to Italy in the summer. So I met him this summer when I was there, and we were just talking about this. And it was David I was talking to. Then there's a Norwegian sculptor, and I think most people agree that Roman portrait work is some of the finest portrait work done in history 2,500 years ago. Their understanding of form and their ability to convey pathos, it's amazing. Really, just mind-blowing work. I'm trying to get the cursor there. And so in this case, what we do is we go in and we kind of study the surface that the Romans built and make our own. We're still in a structural phase when we're with the rake brush. We're not getting into the coloring just yet. But that's okay. This is what I want you guys to get to, and then we get into the coloring where we get more into the actual surface qualities and the halftones and things. And so that's a look inside of the courses that exist now. There's also going to be the arm, which I'm going to do this in August. There's the leg, which I'm going to do in September. And then in August too, we're doing the 4-week live sculpting class where we're going to go into much more depth. Let me get rid of that. We're going to go into much more depth in the stuff that we're actually chatting about today as well. So thank you to all the people that I mentioned earlier that joined yesterday. And shall we get into the sculpting? You guys hear me? Everything's going okay? Okay, looks like everybody's ready and the audio is working just fine. Sweet. Okay, so we're recording, we've got our stream, and we are gold. So I'm going to take advantage of some of the special aspects of ZBrush. And so all we're going to focus on today is the torso. So torso and head for the most part, and a little bit of the legs. So we're not going to work on arms. We're not going to work on the legs. None of that stuff. We're going to remove the base. We're going to get rid of all of that and just focus on the torso. And again, we're leveraging the strength of digital sculpting. So I'm going to duplicate this. And just start to cut up some things. Let me turn transform off, and I'm going to solo so I just see this. Let's turn perspective off, and inside of ZBrush they have this lovely trim curve, so I can use this to, break the model. Oops. Okay. Let me just cut up some of this and careful. Keep all the original sculpt. Okay. All right, and now let's cut that arm off. I'm going to mask off all of this lovely stuff. And I want the arm, just a little bit of that arm to show, not too much. There, nice clean break. Voila. And I really want to cut the legs. I think I want to cut the legs off right here. Yeah, that's going to be good. All right, then I'm going to switch over in my mask. I got to select mask lasso. And let's do the same thing. Nice clean break there. Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that. Okay. I'm going to adjust this real quick because that stuff right near his genitals, I'm not feeling comfortable with that. That's what it is. It's created a little bit of a plateau right there. So let's see if I can do a better job of that. Maybe, maybe not. Let's just do it this way. Okay. Dun 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 dun. And can I clear that out a little bit? Okay, cool. And I think I'm okay with that. So let's just finish this up real quick. Let's go polygroup, and I'll auto group so that I can get rid of any extraneous pieces. Control Shift and go to geometry and delete hidden. Sweet. All right. Now I can clean this up if I want to. With the clay brush, super easy to just kind of get nice little clean surfaces. You just adjust the embed. And if I want, I'm just gonna give that a nice little angle. Let's do the same thing here. I'm just gonna get rid of any kind of hard edges that are troubling me, that draw my eye there. Okay, and of course the genitals are obfuscated, which is good for us here live. Why don't we further obfuscate? You can't further obfuscate. Okay, we'll just leave it like that. There you go. That's going to be our torso that we're going to imitate. Okay? Any questions? Any questions? I'm going to actually do a similar thing to this one. And again, this is me leveraging the power of digital sculpting, because I can actually sculpt all of these parts individually and just sew them all back together. There's a lot of power that we have. Okay, I'm going to freeze subdivision history, so I go down to the lowest. And then let's go back and get our trim back up. What happened there? Ugh. That's gonna suck. Let's go. I need to fix that, so let's go and see if we can't dynamesh that a little bit. You definitely don't want crazy pieces of geometry sticking out, right? And then just unfreeze. And so, technically, if everything goes correct, let's take our depth embed up to 5. And this is my own clay brush, which when you guys sign up to any newsletter or something inside at kingslien.art, I send you to a thank you page where you can download this. If you don't have it though, let me know. And the best place is to head over to kingslien.art. Let me get it. And go to free class. So here you get all my brushes, download to the scan, and it's a totally free class for you. This is also included in the anatomy class as well. It's part of one of the beginnings. Okay, let's get off that page. Okay, there we go. And I think, are we ready? Are we done with this? Let's see. Solo off. Yeah, that'll work, yeah. That's enough. And again, we're going to be able to put this all back together. I'll show you guys. That's what will happen in the last days. I'll show you how I piece all of this together into something. All right. What's wrong? Something's wrong. Top of the head is right. That leg is the same level. The butt. Okay. I'm going to just check a few things, guys. You see how I'm using the sides of the canvas? I'm using these and saying, okay, that's where it connects. Is that reasonable? Yeah. Okay, and then how does it break from here? And so, that needs to get X'd out a little bit. But I think that's gonna all happen as we go. The power of digital sculpting. Let me check in with you guys. Okay, good. All right, now the key part as we go through this, the first thing that we really need to look at is, of course, the masses. And the masses is something that we talked a little bit about yesterday, but I get that from this thin maquette figure that we have. This is part of the power of digital sculpting. So I have the mass of the rib cage, I have all of this, and that massing yesterday, I worked to make that massing kind of fit and maintain the form that we have here and the general volumes. It of course means, that you got to start out with good volume. I got some problems. You can see that's not accurate. But our massing is largely in place. Okay, now once the massing is done, number 2 is that we go in and we do landmarks. And so this is when you need to understand bony landmarks and what those are. And so we can take a look at a couple of options here. You can Google it. I have my own, which come from a book I've been working on. So let me pull that up. All right. Bony landmarks are anywhere that the bone comes to the surface, right? So the sternum. Let's do this in another color, yeah? Anywhere that the bone comes to the surface. The sternum, ASIS, super important. Pubic symphysis, super important. Great trochanter. Great trochanter is right on the outside of the knee. Really important. Really important. So hopefully you guys can see this, because I know sometimes your screens, it can be a little bit harder to see. So let's zoom in a little bit, and we'll just go step by step through this. Okay. The clavicle. But what you have to know about the clavicle is that the clavicle has a couple of different parts. You got to look at the end, and you got to look for the acromial process. We're going to spend a lot of time on the acromial process. We're going to make sure we know where the pit of the neck is. Okay. We also want to know roughly where that 8th rib is, because if you see over here on the the right-hand side, notice how the rib cage has an angle, and that angle changes right at that 8th rib. So the 8th rib is important because it's actually a plane change as well. So you want to make sure that you're kind of clear on where all of those are. As we come down into the legs, you've got the knees, you've got the tibial tuberosity, and that's all stuff we'll look at when we get in and cover that. But if we zoom out a little bit, these are all of the bony landmarks. You can take a screenshot of this. You can use your phone, whatever works for you. I'm going to now move it and look at the back. And so these are the back bony landmarks that I'm going to use as well. So I like to draw your attention to things like the PSIS, right? Things in the back. See the sacrum. We're going to have to work on that. The multifidus and the longissimus, they all come out of that section. The medial border of the scapula. That's going to be really important, especially in our character. And you're going to want to pay attention to the ribs, because the ribs are going to be more obvious in our character, in our sculpt, because of the pose. All right, so there we go. Now let's close out of this. I've started to identify several of these landmarks, and so now I'm going to go in and start to get a few more of them kind of identified. Spine of the scapula. Medial border, let's make sure that we're clear there. Okay. This looks like that's going to be the 10th rib right about there, and then there's the 11th and 12th. Let's find the sacrum. There we go. Into the coccyx right there. Then what's really interesting about this, let's go ahead and look at the actual scan itself. This is the sacrum, right? Now, what I want you to notice is this form right here. That plane, okay? So what is that plane? What's going on there? That's where I want to pull you back into the bony landmarks. What you're seeing, and then this coccyx dives deep inside. So you see, let me see if I can go to red work. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, we can do red. That's the triangle. And then notice the really, like those straight lines that I drew. That's the triangle, and then we have these straight lines that go straight up. And then from there, the wings of the ilium. So, having said that, now we can see sort of wings of the ilium. And a lot of times people are like, well, isn't the wing of the ilium down here? No, this overlaps, especially when you have a side compressing like that. Things start to shift. And so that's that. There's a fat fold that arises right there. Hold on. Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good. Yeah, we're good. Okay. And then in this side, it's right there, but you're starting to get like there's a plane change basically. Do you see the plane change? The form drops and then the form pulls upwards. Okay. So with that, I want to make sure I say, all right, let's go up, and then go ahead and do your due diligence right there. And now you can see it's like, all right, there's some problems there, right, Ryan? And then this one too. I don't have these things kind of properly indicated. Okay, that's all stuff we're going to start to get into, but I want to just make sure that it's like, we've done our part to identify it. Let's go back in history. I don't want those to cause me problems later on. ASIS is right there. Yeah, and then down. Pubic symphysis is going to be right there. So we'll put the pubic symphysis there. Bowl of the belly. Okay, let's come and say, all right. We're going to get our 8th rib. I'm going to put the 8th rib right there. Intercostal arch. This is going to be intercostal arch. Maybe, I don't know. That form right there can actually be abdominal muscle. A lot of crazy goes on right there. I'm going to put the intercostal arch on the outside. And I'm going to say all of this is going to be abs. That's abs. Intercostal arch on the outside. And I'm going to identify what I think is of the 8th rib coming in. You need to have this. You say that's the sternum. You go 90 degrees from that sternum. The 8th rib does flex a little bit. So it's not exactly parallel. It will kind of, but it's not a dramatic. It's not like, hey, okay, this is getting compressed. It's light, a little bit off. And I want to identify that 8th rib. It's actually really important to identify that 8th rib, and to be able to have this 90-degree angle in there. Follow that around to the side. Okay, let's just make sure. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Find the acromion process. So the clavicle, and then the acromion process is going to be on the outside of that. In the back, I'm going to also establish the nuchal line. And that's it. I think that's enough for now. Think I missed anything? Did I miss anything? What do you think? Let's check comments. Awesome. Glad to hear Gnosis. Just said demystified that sacral triangle area. Great. Okay. Let me get proprietary stuff not on that, so we don't have to deal with that. Okay. All right. Let's get back to the screen. And so once I've got that, I'm going to actually duplicate this again. And that way I've always got something with the landmarks roughly where I placed those. And so now I can get in and start to sculpt. And so for me, the sculpting process, we could begin with the dam standard. I take the landmarks that I've drawn, and I'm going to go in and kind of flood them out a little bit. So I'm going to set my RGB intensity at like 24, go color, fill object a few times, so that you just don't want them to be too obvious. And eventually we'll actually completely remove them because you just don't want anything confusing your surface. You want that there, so that's what that guy's about. But when I get in and sculpt, like as soon as I get this kind of indicated, anything else that kind of augments that, it really messes things up. Okay, let's see, sacred triangle. Pull that up, and out, and out. That's going to be, you can see, like if I turn this off, you can see how confusing those can be. So I'm not going to get all of them. I'm just getting, what are essentially going to be, how do I say it? They're like buoys in the ocean. It's just, these are the things where it's like, I navigate from these at this point. Okay, anything else I need to sweat? I don't think so. I mean, I could probably throw something in there, but that's a little overkill, I think. Could probably throw something in here, but that's overkill as well, I think. All right, let's go ahead and completely remove the coloring. Yeah, this will give me enough to work with. So now I'm going to use my clay brush. Again, this is the one that you can download, and I'm going to set the depth embed at like 5 or 4. That's the default. And what I want to think about right off the bat is establishing the structural integrity of the masses, which means, what are the masses? What are the masses? You remember? I'll sculpt and then you can tell me what they are. Let's go lasso. Masses, masses, masses. Nobody's answered that yet. What are the 3 main masses? This form I'm sculpting right now, you'll sculpt this in a Superman pose. You'll sculpt this in just this intercostal arch area here. And essentially what I'm doing, since I don't see any replies yet, is I'm establishing the mass of the rib cage. Some of that is excavation. Rib cage, hip, and head. Yep. Some of this is excavation, some of this is building out. Okay. Sometimes I'm going to leave muscles in there. Sometimes I'm going to get rid of them. Like this part right here, this is an area where I feel like I need to really understand the integrity of that rib cage. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time getting that curvature. And if I have to excavate some muscle there, that's okay with me. I'll put it back in, you know. Let's use the standard brush and let's get a proper depth for that. You see that standard brush that's getting me more of the depth I need. Get back. I need those ribs to kind of come out. Bop, 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 bop. Bum, 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 bum. Sculpt down the form. Sculpt across the form. This is down the form to establish that. And then you can sculpt across it to kind of build it up a little bit more. Those are the two directions for sculpting the rib cage that I think are relatively important. And then I use the standard brush anytime I got to really just go in and cut something. Like if I need to really change the direction of a plane, like you see me doing right there. Easiest thing to do is the standard brush to just cut that up. All right. Taking a lot of time because I am doing an exercise. Okay. And so this is a really important part of the structure of what we're doing here. When you sculpt, I like to think of this in terms of two different arenas, right? And you can think of arenas, two different areas, let's just say, right? You can think of an arena where you have to fight. That's where, rubber hits the road, you get to work. The stakes aren't high, or the stakes are high at that point, and you need to produce, okay? So when you get into figure sculpting, a lot of people just jump into the arena. And that to me is a problem because you also need to spend time in the gym or in the library. You need to practice, and you need to have structured practice so that when you get in there and you actually start to work, you are doing that with good habits, with good process, because process is everything, right? An example of this. We were in Italy, and my wife could not get the oven, the what do you call it, at the top, the grill, right? There's the stovetop things, right? She couldn't get the fires to turn on for that thing, and I could, and she was like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And it all comes down to process. What this thing required was that you had to press down, turn it to the pilot section until it lights, and then lift up, and then once you lift it up, then it was stabilized, and then you could move it to get where you want. And she would just push down, light it, and then keep it pushed down and move it around. That small thing made it impossible for her to get the little grill to light up. It's like that in sculpting. If you don't have your process right, there are going to be things that you are not able to do. And there is nothing you can do to make it work except for go back to the beginning and go to your process and look at what you're doing, right? So important. Process is power, okay? So I have to look now. It looks like this is... Yeah, I'm missing mass right here. That's a feeling I have, but I'm gonna double check all of that anyway, so don't worry. Yeah, there you go. And I'm just using the move brush, pressing Alt, and it allows me to do that. I'm trying to see through the form. I'm trying to say like, all right, well, that's abs, so this is going to be the rib cage. Yeah, this is compressed in on itself. Okay, see how I'm working the silhouette? See how I rotate it just tiny bits? ZBrush hesitated there for a second, so I get super sensitive to crashes. Andrea is asking, Ryan, does procrastination happen to you? No, never. Ever. I am a marvel of achievement and ambition. I don't know anything. I don't even know what you're talking about. Hopefully that comes across as sarcastic. I know tons about wasting time. Okay, I'm not sure about this, but we're gonna get into contours in a second, so I'm trying not to focus too much on contours at the moment. I'm just trying to focus on rib cage, and I'm doing it super slow with you so that you understand how serious it is. Okay, I'm dragging it up here as well. You can see I kind of lost some of that form. And then let's just make sure that the neck is a relatively clear instrument. Okay, almost done. All right, now I'm going to try a trick. Okay, you ready for a trick? Of course, I can look at this and I can use transparency and just see what's in, what's out, and all of that. But the trick is to grab a cross section. Like that. And then just make sure that display double is set. And now you can look at your model and that, turn transparency off. And this is a nice easy way for you to be like, yeah, we're off. And where are you off? Oh. Okay. Make that fit. This side's actually doing pretty good. Voila, voila, voila. Voila, voila, voila. Okay. Now, that little band, you know, helped quite a bit to center me. And that's not the last time I'll use that technique. Okay, because we can come in and do that all over. For example, if we want to know a little bit more about the pelvis, that's going to be an easy place for us to kind of grab that and then look at our model as well and just be like, well, look, we need a little bit more room here. In traditional sculpting, this is a contour that you would spend a good bit of time getting right. If you're sculpting at, say, the Florence Academy, any of these places, these are very important elements that you need to lock in. And we're here leveraging the power of digital sculpting to kind of just make this a little bit faster and to give ourselves training wheels, you know, to the whole deal. Okay. Okay, and then is there another contour that I want? Kind of is. Okay. It's actually, we're in pretty good shape. Yeah. Let's get the pit of the neck. Let's get all of that a little bit more in there. Okay, that's going to be muscles, so we'll worry about all of that later. Just want to make sure that I've got my form inside. A little bit skinny. That's the most important. Okay. All right. Now, if you want extra training wheels, I am not opposed to my students coming in and just getting some of these a little bit more locked in through this. This is something that you would you kind of make your own decision on how much you really need the training wheels, and then over time you just need less, right? I don't take this from a big macho perspective of I've got to do X, Y, and Z. I think that's just a bunch of BS. Everybody just needs training. Everybody has training wheels. You know, or you just suffer for year after year after year until, you know, you finally magically comprehend it. Up to you. Pain and suffering, or, you know, use the training wheels. My son learned with the training wheels. He didn't smack his head into the sidewalk every so often. I don't see why my students can't do this. Okay, let's go and be done with that. And so there we have some form largely locked in for the masses, right? So I've locked in pelvis through that one cage, through the other contour, and we've kind of established this area up here into the neck through the other contour. So 1, 2, and 3. Pretty cool, huh? It's one of the unique powers of digital sculpting. And it's also why I think no matter what medium you're in, there's oil painters that use digital sculpting and rendering tools to create, you know, imaginative things that they can leap off of, right, to create their own. Digital sculpting to me is the smartest way to learn anatomy and to begin to understand the body, right? I'm a strong believer, like working from a life model and working from clay. But I believe that if you skip digital sculpting, you're just cutting off, you know, power. You're taking away a source of power to yourself. This is one of the fastest ways to get anatomy from the book into your actual head. And you can collapse time by learning it this way. That's really the big, like, sell, I guess you would say, for me, of the anatomy classes. When you do the écorché digitally, when you draw on the scans digitally, and then when you sculpt it digitally, you have locked in knowledge in a way that Leonardo da Vinci would do it if he could. So, a lot of power. Let me check out comments here real quick. James is asking, how do you do the cross sections in traditional sculpting? And you can actually see this in Robert Bodum Eric out of the Florence Academy. The Florence Academy, you'll see they do some, and I'm actually going to get into it a little bit now in the nitty gritty. But essentially, the technique of using that cross section, they do that forever, right? They've dipped sculptures in water to look at the cross section of something and try to design that form, right? That was one of the things Michelangelo used. He didn't have the pointing machine, but he had some early versions of the pointing machine. And then the Florence Academy, I think, is a good one to go by. Let me see. Oh, yeah. War of Art is an unbelievable book. Unbelievable book. It's just ridiculous. All right, but anyways, do you feel the structure in this? And let's go in and let's get rid of the stuff I put there. Do you feel how, I have some of the energy of the original, right? And so it's like, okay, well, look, I got that plane. And I feel like there's some movement there. And really all I did was I focused on the masses of the rib, the pelvis, and really the shoulder girdle. Doing it in the easiest way possible by using cross sections. And instead of using measurements where you're on the model measuring from point A to point B and then on from there. Such a powerful tool to work with this. All right. So now once I've got these massing, right, we've got, let me see, we've got our massing. We had our landmarks. We started to get into our contour. So massing was done, landmarks were done, and we've started our contour of these masses. And now we're actually going to get in and we're going to actually start building contours of the forms. Okay? And this really gets into the construction process. So for me, this is everything that we do now fits under the banner of construction. And so the way I like to build form is that you find a high line of a form, and then you build bridges to the rest of the form. Right? And I'm going to demo that, of course. But we need to find an area where we can kind of build a high line, like a main contour. Like let's say right here, this would be a contour. I'm over on the left-hand side. And then we would then build a bridge down to the remaining form around there. If you're in clay, you do this by like just putting a little pebble or putting a tube of clay down there, whatever the case is going to be. In ZBrush, what you'll see me do is two things. We already kind of talked about it. You'll see me sculpt down a form and then sculpt across the form. This can be a little tricksy. Like, at what point are you when are you sculpting down? Like, are you sculpting across the form this way? Are you sculpting down the form? Like, this is all crazy. Hold on one sec. What do you need, Audie?
Are we going out for lunch?
Yeah, but after the meeting.
So what time?
I don't know. We'll talk about it. Chose though, yeah?
I need to know if Lucas can't come.
Lucas can come to lunch with us.
Oh, I'll talk to you about that.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, so construction. Down the form, up the form. We're going to have to be mindful of all of this crazy, right? You see crazy, 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 crazy. You're going to have to learn how to simplify. There's a couple of really important concepts. Down form, across form. You're also going to need to understand hierarchy. So these are small forms, but can you see the big form right there, right? So there's the wall of the rib cage. And then you can think of and say, all right, well, this is the wall of the rib cage. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to focus on a smaller quadrant. I'm going to divide that and I'm going to be focused on a smaller area. And then now you've got serratus and external obliques. Okay? Making sure that you're thinking hierarchically becomes really important. All right, we're at 1 hour 2, and we actually have a lot of work ahead of us. Of course, I'm not going to do everything because that's what the class is about. Okay, let's go this way. I'm going to build a main contour right here. And I'm rotating the models because that contour, you'll see like it changes. Also, really important, let me put my face on camera. Really important, I'm going to show you guys one thing, and it becomes a real fundamental part of sculpting. Yeah, this is such a cool thing to talk about. So, in nature, there are no concavities. That means that there's a form that's concaved if it's alive, right? If somebody's got their head bashed in, it's a concave. Okay, it's not entirely true, but what this idea means is that in order for something to look like it's full of life, you want it to all come outwards. You want it to be convex, not concave. All right, and so when we sculpt, we might see areas of things that look like they're kind of pushed in. And our job, which is what I'm going to show you right now, this looks pushed in, right? This looks like that's a concavity, but it's not. It's actually a series of convexities. Those are the convexities of that form. And yeah, Ryan, it bends here, it bends here. Okay, sure. Okay, but if you want it to look alive, you're going to understand this, and then you can just add that stuff in later. Okay, you can add in a little bit there, or what you'll see in some sculptures, what they'll do is they put, instead of making that concave, they put a straight line, and this is called a rest. You'll see that in Michelangelo, and Edward Lanteri talks about that, establishing these rests. Instead of making it concave, just flatten it out, and then the form builds around that. Pretty crazy, but make sure that you guys have this in your mind, because as I go through and I'm sculpting this form here, that's what I've got in mind. Do you see how I'm sculpting these? I'm sculpting this form in parts. Down the form, across the form to build bridges. Down the form and then across the form, and you can press Alt or not press Alt. Tells me that I'm off. I'm off. Do you see how this form is kind of pulling this way, and this form is doing something different? That's because that's the teres major right there. If you know anatomy, you get it, right? This is part of it. That's the teres major, and then the triceps is coming on the other side of that, and that's diving in. Let's get that teres major there. Get that tricep there. Down the form and across the form. Let's build up. I did the wrong thing. Let's build up that spine of the scapula. Dun, 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 dun. Deltoid has 3 parts. This is going to be the scapula portion. Then we're going to start to find the main contour of the trapezius, which is, I would argue, right there. So I'm going to sculpt that. And then we'll build the bridge from there. And obviously on the inside, that bridge is, it goes down. So it's like, that's the main line, and it drops down, and this is a nicer curve to it. Also with this construction process, it's like scaffolding. See how I'm laying down a scaffold, then I'm laying down another scaffold, and I'm trying to get the angle between them, right? But notice how the angle's not lining up. So that's a problem. I need to get that angle to line up. And so it indicates that something is wrong with one of these. I don't know which one, but something's wrong with one of them. So I have to choose like a universal, and I have to say, probably need to move that in. Yeah, I probably need to move that in. But also, because we're in the digital sculpting land, don't be afraid to come in, and you can use a standard brush and just say, there. Okay, so I'm actually right. The neck is right. What's wrong is back here. So I'm just going to sculpt that until it starts to protrude. Do you see that? Look at that. That's all the volume I'm missing. And I'm not doing this line to cheat. I'm doing this line and saying to myself, that's my problem. My problem is I don't have the mass. So now I'm just going to hide that or undo it, and then I'll build that back up. And get that scaffolding working. And so that's going to affect quite a few things. And I think that's pretty accurate. And now, if we go back into split mode, that's going to match a lot better. Okay. Now I'm also going to come in here and I want to find this point, and I want to make sure that that is accurate. It is. So that was the point. I was like, is that accurate? Am I close? And it is. So now I can come back in here and say, yep, that is accurate. Now build from there. I see. I got this scaffold, I got this scaffold, and I got this scaffold down here. What's going on? What's going on in that section? So a lot of sculpting is it's problem solving. right? And that's the goal I have. Like in this live class, if you don't take my anatomy class, you don't join me for the 4-week live sculpting, you just have to understand that sculpting is problem solving. You have a point in space and you're trying to find the next point in space. That's a problem that you're trying to solve. And so you have to use these strategies, right? And there's all kinds of strategies that are out there. But when you get into sculpting, the process of finding contours, I think is a really strong, powerful process. So now I'm going to go in and look in this one particular area and see if I can't find some contours to help me make sense out of it. So, for example, I see this contour. I feel like there's another contour moving this way. There's also this contour out, which I kind of have, but you see it's dips. So I need to get a little bit more strength in that. So that form seems to be moving like that. And then this appears to be a wedge moving like this. And if I can get that, that simplicity, I think I can win. Let's try it. My embed is too high, so I'm going to set that down to 2. Depth embed is really important with these brushes of mine. I'm missing this contour. That's what's happening. Do you see how you got a line and a line and a line? So I'm missing that contour. That's my problem. Do you see it? Okay. Always, 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 this view is so essential. Make sure that you're always looking at the model from below. All right, now I would love to know, guys, what are you picking up out of what I am laying down? What has been one of the most useful, as far as you can tell, things that you've learned so far? I'm going to carve in the rib cage and then put the external oblique over the top just because of how the muscle layers. But then that's going to all disappear right back there when you get to the ribs. I'm going to look at it from, you see how it's kind of concave right there? So I'm rotating around and reestablishing convexity. Making sure that this has life from all these different views. Shaving the silhouette. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up this soon, and I think what we'll do is jump into this tomorrow as well. I don't want to overload you guys today, and I do want to keep these limited time-wise. But let's go ahead and let's get a little crazy with the Cheese Whiz here. Let me save this. Okay, I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to go a lot faster. All right, so I'll have a version of this that's saved where you have a solid comprehension of my of how I think about form, broken down in what I would. I mean, it's really the slowest I can go. And then I'm gonna go fast. I'm gonna go fast right after this, and then I can unpack some of that work that I did fast tomorrow as well. But I don't know. I say if we can go about my phone's showing a black screen. We can go about another 10-15 minutes, then we'll call it a day. All right, now before we do that, and while this thing is saving, remember, let's go ahead and say what there. Enrollment for this course, let me go show you the screen. Enrollment for this course ends in 3 days, guys. It ends Sunday night. So when you enroll in this course, you're getting the anatomy for artists that I showed you earlier in this this live session. You're also getting 4-week live figure sculpting class, where we are going to dive into everything we're doing right now at greater depth, and you are going to do it, and we're going to give feedback on people's work and all of that good stuff. So there's a lot more structure that we're going to be able to kind of unpack. So for example, you're going to see me do something in like, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. We're gonna get a lot more deep into that. All right, and so that starts the Saturday, August 2nd, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. That's the figure sculpting, but you're going to get immediate access to anatomy of the torso, sculpting the head, and then you're going to get future access to the arm and the leg. The arm is supposed to be August, the leg is supposed to be September. And please, I tell people this all the time, the price just goes up because there's so much more stuff. Most people for a 4-week sculpting class, that by itself is $367 or $397 or $400. But you're also getting the anatomy and all of that. And so I treat people really well when they get in and they take a chance on me. I just want to reward you guys, which is something I learned from Pixelogic. So any questions about the course, let me know. I'm going to look at the things that you got out of this right now. So let's see. A lot. That's awesome. All right, let's do this. I'm going to move it here into this screen and do camera so I can read and talk. Okay, hold on. I just lost the chat. Okay. Lots of questions. Okay. Guillermo, and if you don't have a 3D model, I think you're talking about if, like, how do you do this out of your imagination, right? So we talked about that a little bit earlier. This is learning, right? And so this is an exercise. The French academics, they worked from life models and they did etudes, studies, and a series of studies so that then they could construct. So if you don't have a life model, or if you don't have a scan, you do what anybody would do, you construct it. But can you? Do you understand how to construct it? That's a lot of times people conflate this. They think they should know. And like, I'm not a real artist if I don't know how to do this. Well, that's all BS. What is a real artist, right? This is a skill. This is a craft. And you learn it. So study it. And that's what this is all about, is studying the figure, not working from imagination. That happens once we have this foundation. And it's something I love to do, but I talk to you and I start doing that in front of you. It's very hard for people to follow. Okay. What's creating the plane change in the scapular region? Lots. Spine of the scapula, medial border of the scapula. There's a lot. The method reminds me of industrial clay modeling. Yes, that's exactly it. The character line, the silhouette, the contour. Lots of words. Wakosin's learning to trust the process and look for bony landmarks as reference points. Awesome. Ma is approaching anatomy has been a struggle, and I really learned a lot in today's stream. What did you learn? Try to put some words to it. Gnosis, the most useful thing to me is where you break down why a form is a certain way. Like when you explain the part of the teres major and the triceps. That demystifying aspect. Yeah, great. Ashley, the most useful to me, life blooms outwards. Yeah, great. Heather, I'm very new, learning too much to define. I'll rewatch these. All right, great. I want to learn anatomy so badly, but I couldn't find a way to do it. All right. Graduate. I love games. If you can't make the mail live, where will they be recorded? Oh, okay. You're just asking if there's recorded. So yes, there's recorded. The live sessions. The live sessions are recorded, and they're in there with the course. And somebody's in nursing school and wants to go into games. The thing that you have to understand about all of these industries, nobody cares if you went to Harvard. They don't care if you went to USC. If you're George Lucas's godson or goddaughter, like maybe you get an interview, but honestly, it doesn't matter. If you can't do the work, you don't get the job. If you get the job and you can't do the work, you don't have the job anymore. So you need to do what people today are doing. And so you need a school or an education or a self-study practice where you create a prop. And you create a prop not just because you want to learn substance painter. Like, who cares about painter? It's going to be something different in 5 years. You need to know how to create that prop so it looks realistic and looks like it could be in a AAA game. Environment, same thing. Character, same thing. Vertex School's a great place to do that, I feel. That's why I made it. So the other thing is just go somewhere where you are making portfolio stuff and you work every day to make your portfolio look like the portfolio of somebody who works in the industry. That's the simple breakdown. A lot more to it that we can talk about later, or head to one of the info sessions at Vertex. In this course, you will be going over how the anatomy changes when it moves, or centered on the basics. So the anatomy course is in a basic pose, right? And so that's where in this figure sculpting that you're getting free, that is where we are putting it in motion, right? So you have to first study it in the static. Otherwise, it's too much. You study it in static, and then you learn how to apply the static dynamically, right? So it's a dynamic figure sculpting class you're taking when you sign up for this. Diego, I have like a necessity of measurements, landmarks, and workflow. Is that a problem for learning anatomy? No. To learn anatomy, you should do measurements, landmarks. Of course, I'm going quite quickly in this. If you enroll in the class, you get the scan. Yeah, it's there because we're going to be working off of this. And abs, funny you should mention that, abs. But yes, you got to be good at anatomy. But what you have to also remember is that there's many parts to this. So if you're a character artist, you could be somebody who just does costume. You just do marvelous designer, right? You could be somebody who does hair. Hair is a big deal. And you don't know anything about anatomy, but you know how to create real-time hair in Unreal Engine, strand-based hair, all these things. That's a job. So there is a lot of potential. There's a lot of variability. All right, let's start our 10-minute timer. And let's get to work on making something out of this. Raphael, yeah, the figure sculpting class is going to be live. Now I've changed my alpha. I'm going to set my depth in bed to 5 because I'm going to get aggressive. And let me move out of the way a little bit. I might get a little off track now. That doesn't, oh yeah, that looks fine. But let's see if I can't maintain. These are the parts of the trapezius. I'm going to build a scaffolding right here. Ah, too small. Okay, again, I'm working super fast now, guys, because I've gone through the intellectual process with you a little bit more slowly. Don't worry if you're not operating at this speed. If you are operating at this speed, give me a call. I need some help with mentors at a certain point. So we see if we can work out a deal. But ultimately my eye, just to slow down for a second, I'm finding valleys and I'm building up the hills. Finding the valleys and then building up the hills. Okay? And I'm doing it quickly. And I'm establishing good strong planes too. Planes are super important to me. Always checking that silhouette too. Erector spinae group. See how I chew at the silhouette? Do you see, if I just walk through that, see I'm chewing at the silhouette. Like that. Really important kind of, I think of it as a core skill. You got to know how to chew at the silhouette. You got to know how to say, all right, hey, there's a form right there. And then that separates from the form down below. So I'm going to create like a contour, drop that down, and then there's going to be another main contour right there. Okay, so contour. And this is basically, because I know anatomy, this is the gluteus medius. Look at it from above, because this is when you get the real true contour forms in there. This part can look messy, but if you can see the structure, like for me it's not messy. This is actually essential structure. Okay, same here, gluteus medius. Start to indicate that volume. This one I have to be really careful because it's really easy to screw that up. And I'll definitely tomorrow be adjusting and working that. I'm going to get the a little bit of the erector spinae group. I'm going down and I'm going across. Notice how I'm trying to build convexity. Even though this is there's a lot of planar stuff going on here. I'm building convexity within each section. So I see there's a section right here. I build that to some convexity. There's some ribs here. Convexity. Let's get... Do you hear my pen crashing across the surface? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really paying attention to planes. Get the genitals in there a little bit. Simplified, of course. Don't let don't let that chew that silhouette. There. Gotta let it save. The goal of study is to be able to do exactly what I'm doing now, which is to be able to make quick, efficient strokes that define form. Okay, get the pectoralis, and it should start to appear to you guys, like you should start to really feel. And so, for example, do you see, learning anatomy, man, this is the key, because a pectoralis, you might just go in and be like, there's my pectoralis. I'm done, boys. No, that is not a pectoralis. Or that's not this dude's pectoralis. That's something that lives in our imagination. I wish my pectoralis was like that. No. This pectoralis actually it conforms quite strongly to the shape of the manubrium, the sternum, the knife blade, and the pectoralis's main form is here. Get the clavicle, and you see how with the clavicle, I'm being really rough. This, especially here, hopefully what you're seeing is I am still using that contour approach. The other thing that's really important about what's happening right now in my mind, in my brain, is there's a state of flow I get into. Super important that you try to understand that and help yourself get into it, because I can process things quicker. It's like, if somebody talks slowly and you want to rip your ears out, as you're sitting there trying to remember everything that they say as they talk super slowly. Here I'm working at speed. The best math class I ever had, the woman talked so fast I barely had enough time to write it down. I understood everything she said. It's like one of the only math classes I got, because she didn't mess around, man. Okay, sternocleidomastoid, pit of the neck. Don't forget this as a cylinder. This is largely cylindrical, so think cylinder. But sternocleidomastoid. Then, what are all these things? Scalenus, levitator scapulae. There's actually a form right here. Let's get that clavicle indicated. All right, what do you guys think? That worked quite quickly, so I'm going to now look at it from silhouette, and so there's little things that are kind of, you know, off. That needs some work. There we go. Working the silhouette. Chewing at the silhouette. All right, and now okay. There we go. Let's call it at that, right, for today. And tomorrow we're going to go in and get into more detail in this, quite possibly even getting into the arms, for example. So, take a screenshot if you want, if that's useful. Thank you. What'd you guys learn? Tell me. Tell me something that you really just picked up out of this whole thing. Let me move this over here so I can see. Gnosis, form concepts, anatomy, knowledge. Form concepts are the foundation of artistic anatomy. Paul Richer called it morphology, but I prefer form concepts. Morphology is the study of surface, and that's what he considered artistic anatomy to be focused on. For me, form concepts is it's for example, the upper arm is a cube, the lower arm is a cylinder, or it's a oval and a rectangle. Those are form concepts. Okay. All right. I want to end it here, guys. We're at an hour and 45 minutes, which is a little bit more than I wanted. Tell me in the chats either now or when this thing closes. I really would love to know, like, what was the single most important takeaway that you guys got out of this? I would love to know that. It helps me do these things, and it helps you lock in what you actually learned. And so remember, Kingslien.art, enrollment ends in 3 days. It's a pretty good deal, guys. 4-week live class plus this anatomy class. At the end of the day, this anatomy class is going to be like $400, $500 on the site. That's the plan. Just so we're on the same page, that's the price it will eventually be once everything's done. Because it's hours and hours of content, and it's a complete class. And then there's the 4-week thing on top of that. So I'd love to see you guys in there. Please make sure to join me as soon as you can. And then we're going to start the live class August 2nd. So any questions, put them in the chat here. I will be checking that. Tell me the one thing that you guys learned out of this. Would be fantastic. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I know you're busy, so it means a lot that you're here asking questions and being involved. I really appreciate it. All right, let's look at the screen once I get my mug off of it. There we go. Okay, Kingslien.art. Sign up. Diomedes answering the question. Bony landmarks, 8th rib and triangle was really helpful. Awesome. And when you eat the figure, Laura says. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Gnosis. All right, team. Take care of yourselves. I'll chat at you later. And we got 3 more days left, so